Alright, it is time for the cleanup episode, which means we're getting all the items that I missed, and also showing off the Horming Torpedo. It horms. It does just that. So, Horming Torpedo. So, each individual missile isn't the strongest thing, but you can fire a bunch of them pretty rapidly, so that doesn't much matter. They do leave you open for a moment. It does take, a second or so for the torpedoes to do their thing. But for the most part, you just launch them and then you just kind of let them do their own thing until things on screen are done. Now, granted, if there are too many enemies, or enemy-adjacent things like the fake trees that the woodcutters were using, it might not be super effective. It might not do quite as much as you want to, because it's just spreading itself too thin and going after things that aren't super important. Nonetheless, it is pretty useful, just it's not Storm Tornado, which is its biggest weakness. Storm Tornado is just kind of the metal blade of the game, so it is what it is. There's just one really good weapon. Anyway, though, so I'm also going to use this time to mention a few things that probably won't come up in the final set of levels. For one, if you were thinking that maybe the navigator in Maverick Hunter X kind of comes out of left field and, maybe feels like a bit of a fluff character that they added for the remake, not necessarily. According to the Rockman X Complete Works, there was actually a design for a Navigator-type character, all the way, back for even X1. It's just, that didn't pan out and she doesn't exist. In terms of design, she looks kind of like a character who will appear later in the X series, but with a lot more attitude, and also Zero's hairstyle, kinda. It's a very wild ponytail she's got. But yeah, no, it never wound up actually making it in-game, but then again, X1 really doesn't have a lot of secondary characters or tertiary characters. I mean, I guess the Mavericks would be the secondary characters. Meanwhile, the only ones who really matter in terms of story are X-Zero, Vile, and Sigma. Yeah, everything else just, doesn't really matter. The Mavericks exist as an entity, but individually, whatever. Now, I kind of feel like this works for X1 and kind of doesn't. On one hand, I think it works to make the story feel a bit more lonely, which I think makes sense considering sort of the situation of everything. Mavericks existed before Sigma decided he was just going to kill all humans, but then Sigma came along, and then they were worse, so from a story standpoint, I think it makes sense that, it's just X and Zero as far as we care, because everything is just too much of a mess. Everybody got caught by surprise by such an effective fighting force that nobody really knows what to do or how to handle it effectively. Except, of course, for our heroes. Though also, X is still, the newbie hunter. He doesn't really have too much experience, and he's seemingly weaker than all of the other Reploids around him. So, it makes sense that he's kind of isolated in that way. On the other hand, though, I'm kind of giving away how the series progresses, but, kind of would make sense for the later games to feel more lonely. We won't see why for many, many, many games. In fact, not even in this series. We're gonna have to wait until the next Mega Man series to really see why I'm saying that, but, I guess it doesn't... It's not an impossibility that, we start kind of lonely and, it's just X and Zero against the world as far as we know, to a larger cast, and I'm not going to say a friendlier overall atmosphere, but there are other people, and that helps. It helps make things a little less scary when everything else is horrible. Also, there's only water here because I defeated Launch Octopus. It was dry before, and that's why I didn't get this stuff. But yeah, no, it makes sense that we, the players, see that, and then it sort of progresses into, you know, back into loneliness after what we see of the series. Also, suddenly, this whole cavern is collapsing, but it doesn't seem like the rocks falling from the ceiling actually hurt you sometimes. And other times I think they did. Or maybe I'm thinking of Maverick Hunter X, I've actually honestly forgotten. But yeah, I also just wanted to show this off because this didn't happen before. So I guess I just need to kill Launch Octopus to also make this cavern just absolutely unbearable. It could also just be that these are breakable blocks, so since I have the head part, the blocks are breaking and not hurting me. In fact, I think that's actually the case, because I don't think I got the helmet in Maverick Hunter X, which led to me getting hurt. Anyway, though, yeah. Speaking of things I need to get, you might notice that X's Buster looks a little different here, and that's because I did actually have to get the X Buster upgrade off-screen. So let's pretend for the sake of getting this ability here that I have it, and then we're gonna go back to not having it later. Reason being is, the final item I'm going to get requires you to have all of the upgrades, and also all the sub-tanks. I think they have to be fully filled, but that could also be a, you know, unlock Luigi and Mario 64 thing. I could just be misremembering a lie. However, you also need to reset the game multiple times. Or the stage, rather. You can technically do this by just using the exit chip, but I prefer just jumping into a pit when we get to the point where we need to be, because it's just faster. I will cut out most of those, though, just because that would be boring. However, before we get to that, I would like to mention one more thing about Maverick Hunter X. I'm not going to show the full range of cutscenes. In fact, there's only really one thing from the, final fortress that I'm really going to be paying much attention to for the finale stages, but not the entire thing. So I'm also not going to show off that the game has another playable character. You might think it's Zero, but it's not. It's actually Vile, because I guess someone probably wanted to play as Vile. I mean, people like Boba Fett for some reason, and he looks like Boba Fett, so maybe that's it. Maybe there's just something about that look that makes people think, yeah, sure, there's nothing of substance here, but I'll pretend to like it anyway. Anyway, this is where you want to jump off the cliff, so I'm mostly going to be cutting out, but yeah, Vile mode in Maverick Hunter X is, not necessarily unfun. He's got a distinct and interesting playstyle. The main issue, however, is that it just plays the same song for every stage. Yeah, it just has one song. You just hear Vile's theme for the whole thing. And I don't know why they made that decision, but it was a bad decision, and nobody likes it. There is, however, a hack to just give you normal music for the Vile stages, so if you're interested in that, go for it. I didn't really feel like playing Maverick Hunter X long enough to actually get Vile mode and show it off, though. Anyway, time to jump off the cliff a few more times. And there's one. And as it turns out, that one is the only other one I needed. So, we have Dr. Light from Streets here, because this is the hidden Ha-can-douken ability. In order to use it, you basically input what you would do for a Ha-can in the Street Fighter series, which is a quarter circle forward. If you don't know enough about fighting games to know what that is, you start with the down button, down, and the direction you're facing, and then just the direction you're facing, all in one swift motion, and then you press the attack button. When you don't know what that is, it's kind of a pain to pull off, but honestly, I have at least played enough fighting games to know how to pull off a Hadouken, and it's a pretty common input, so I can actually do that pretty reliably now. Anyway, that's enough cleanup. Next time, we start the finale of Mega Man X.